Captain Kyung-ho stared at the massive ship floating in the purple mist of the Kepler Nebula and felt his four hearts skip a beat. The vessel was enormous, bigger than anything his patrol fleet had ever encountered. Its hull was black as space, itself covered in scars from weapons fire that had happened long ago. Strange symbols ran along its sides, symbols that made his scaled skin crawl with ancient fear. "What do you think it is, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Bo-Ram from the communications station. Her voice carried the usual confidence of the Viridian. "Navy." But Kyung-ho could hear something else underneath, something that sounded like worry. Kyung-ho adjusted his uniform and walked closer to the viewing screen. His people, the Sauridians, had excellent eyesight, and he could see details that others might miss. The ship looked dead, completely lifeless, but there was something about its design that seemed familiar. The angular lines, the weapon ports, the way the armor plating overlapped like scales on his own body. "Run it through the historical database," he ordered. "Check everything from the last 500 years. The ship's computer hummed quietly as it searched through millions of records. Kyung-ho waited, his tail twitching with nervous energy. He had been patrolling this sector for 20 years, and nothing like this had ever appeared before. The nebula was supposed to be empty, just gas and dust and the occasional asteroid. "Captain," said Bo-Ram, and her voice was much quieter now. "The computer found a match. It says this is a human dreadnought." The bridge went completely silent. Every member of the crew turned to look at their captain, waiting for his response. Kyung-ho felt his blood turn cold. Humans had been extinct for 300 years. Everyone in the galaxy knew the story. The humans had tried to conquer everything, spreading across the stars like a disease. They had been violent and dangerous, always fighting, always wanting more. The 12 species of the Viridian hegemony had been forced to unite against them, to stop them before they destroyed everything good in the universe. "That is impossible," said Chief Engineer Taemin from his station near the back of the bridge. "The humans are all dead. We made sure of that." "The computer does not lie," replied Bo-Ram. "It matches the design perfectly. This is the Soul's Pride, flagship of the Third Human Fleet. It was reported destroyed at the Battle of Terra Prime 312 years ago. Kyung-ho had studied that battle in military school. It had been the final engagement of the war, when the human homeworld of Earth had finally fallen. The humans had fought to the very end, throwing everything they had at the combined fleets of the hegemony. Billions had died on both sides, but it had been necessary. The human threat had to be stopped. "Sir," said Bo-Ram, "I am detecting very faint power readings from the vessel. Something is still active inside. This changed everything. If there was still technology functioning on that ship, it could be valuable. Human technology had been surprisingly advanced, even if the humans themselves had been savage barbarians. The hegemony had learned much from studying captured human equipment." "Contact the research vessel Prosperity," Kyung-ho ordered. "Tell them we have found something that requires immediate investigation." 2 hours later, the Prosperity arrived with its crew of scientists and historians. The lead researcher was Hei Jin, a member of the insectoid Clithrak species. She was considered one of the best xenoarchaeologists in the galaxy, specializing in the study of extinct civilizations. Her compound eyes glittered with excitement as she studied the readings from the human ship. "This is incredible," she said, her mandibles clicking rapidly. "Do you realize what we have found? This ship contains technology that we have never been able to study before. The humans destroyed most of their equipment before they died. This could teach us so much about how they thought, how they built their weapons." Kyung-ho was not as excited as the scientist. He had a bad feeling about this discovery, though he could not explain why. "What are your recommendations, Doctor?" "We must board the vessel immediately," He-Jin replied. "I will take a small team inside to conduct a preliminary survey. If the ship is as intact as it appears, this could be the greatest archaeological discovery in centuries." The boarding party consisted of He-Jin and 3 other scientists, along with 6 heavily armed security guards. Kyung-ho insisted on leading the security team himself. He had fought in border skirmishes against pirates and rebels, but he had never set foot on a human vessel before. The story said that human ships were designed like weapons, built for war and nothing else. The airlock of the Soul's Pride opened easily when they transmitted the standard salvage codes. The interior of the ship was dark and cold, lit only by the portable lights that the boarding party carried with them. The corridors were wide and functional, with no decoration or art anywhere to be seen. Everything was designed for efficiency, for moving troops and supplies quickly during battle. "The gravity generators are still functioning," reported one of the scientists. "Atmosphere is present, but very thin. The ship is maintaining life support at minimum levels." They moved deeper into the vessel, following the main corridor toward what their scanners indicated was the ship's center. The walls were covered with symbols and numbers that none of them could read. Human writing was different from anything used by the species of the hegemony. It looked harsh and angular, like the weapons they had built. "There," said He-Jin, pointing with one of her forearms. "That doorway leads to what appears to be a medical facility. If there are any biological samples remaining, that is where we will find them." The medical bay was enormous, filled with equipment that none of them recognized. Strange machines lined the walls, their purposes unclear. But what drew everyone's attention were the rows upon rows of cylindrical pods that filled the center of the room. Each pod was about the size of a coffin, made of some kind of transparent material that had gone cloudy with age. "Cryogenic storage," breathed He-Jin. "The humans were trying to preserve themselves. Most of the pods were dark and obviously non-functional. Whatever had been inside them was long dead." But as the boarding party moved through the rows of silent cylinders, one of the security guards noticed something strange. "Captain," he called out, "this one is different." Kyung-ho hurried over to where the guard was standing. Unlike all the others, this pod still had power. A single red light blinked steadily on its control panel, and frost covered the transparent surface. Inside, barely visible through the condensation, was the shape of a human body. "Is it alive?" asked Kyung-ho. He-Jin attached her scanning equipment to the pod's control panel. Her mandibles clicked faster as she read the results. According to these readings, the occupant is in perfect stasis. All biological functions are suspended, but stable. This human has been asleep for 300 years. "What should we do with it?" asked one of the other scientists. Kyung-ho stared at the pod and the shape inside it. Here was a real human, a member of the species that had once threatened to destroy everything his people held dear. The smart thing would be to destroy the pod and its contents. The safe thing would be to leave it here and report the discovery to High Command. But as he watched, the red light began to blink faster. The pod's control panel lit up with symbols and numbers that meant nothing to any of them. Deep inside the machinery, something made a soft humming sound. "The revival sequence has begun," said He-Jin, her voice filled with scientific excitement and fear. "The pod is preparing to wake its occupant." Kyung-ho's hand moved to his weapon. Around him, the other security guards did the same. In a few minutes, they would be face to face with humanity's past. The question was whether that past would stay buried, or whether it would rise again to threaten the peace that the galaxy had enjoyed for 3 centuries. The humming grew louder, and the pod began to glow with soft blue light. The blue light grew brighter, and the humming became a steady rhythm like a heartbeat. Woo-Jin felt consciousness return to him slowly, like swimming up from the bottom of a deep ocean. His body felt strange and heavy, as if he had been sleeping for a very long time. The last thing he remembered was the sound of explosions and the feeling of something sharp cutting into his chest during the battle on Terra Prime. The pod opened with a soft hiss, and cold air rushed over his skin. Wu Jin tried to sit up, but his muscles would not obey him properly. Everything felt weak and unsteady. He blinked several times, trying to clear his vision, and found himself looking at the most terrifying sight he could imagine. Aliens were standing around his pod, pointing weapons at him. The closest one was tall and covered in green scales, with yellow eyes and a long tail that moved back and forth like a snake. Others stood behind it, creatures he had never seen before but recognized from military briefings. These were the enemy, the ones who had come to destroy humanity and take their worlds. Wu Jin tried to speak, but only a rough sound came from his throat. The scaled alien said something in a language he did not understand, then pointed its weapon directly at his head. The meaning was clear enough. Training took over where conscious thought failed. Wu Jin had been a sergeant in the Terran Marines, and his body remembered what to do even when his mind was still foggy from the long sleep. He rolled sideways out of the pod, using its bulk as cover, and scrambled across the floor toward the nearest wall. "Stop him!" shouted the scaled alien in accented standard, the common language used for trade between species. Wu Jin pressed his palm against a panel on the wall, hoping that the ship's systems were still functioning. His biometric signature was registered in the Soul's Pride's computer, and if there was any power left at all, the ship should recognize him as a member of the crew. Emergency lighting flickered on throughout the medical bay, bathing everything in red light. An alarm began to sound, and heavy blast doors started to close between sections of the room. The aliens fired their weapons, but Wu Jin was already moving, using his knowledge of the ship's layout to stay ahead of them. "Welcome back, Sergeant Wu Jin," said a familiar voice from the speakers in the walls. "I have been waiting for you." It was Yunbi, the ship's artificial intelligence. Her voice was calm and professional, exactly as he remembered it. Hearing a friendly voice after waking up surrounded by enemies filled Wu Jin with relief and hope. "Yunbi, what is our situation?" he asked as he ran through the corridors, still weak but getting stronger with each step. "The war is over, Sergeant," replied the AI. "Humanity has been defeated. Earth has fallen. All human colonies have been conquered or destroyed. You have been in cryogenic stasis for 312 years, 4 months, and 6 days. The words hit Wu Jin like a physical blow. He stopped running and leaned against a wall, trying to understand what he had just heard. The war was over. Humanity had lost. Everyone he had ever known was dead, and had been dead for centuries. "How many survivors?" he asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "Unknown," said Yunbi. "The enemy has spent 3 centuries hunting down any remaining humans. Some may still exist as slaves in alien labor camps, but no free human settlements remain. You appear to be the only active human military personnel left in the galaxy." Wu Jin closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The weight of this knowledge was almost too much to bear, but he was a soldier. He had a duty to his species, even if that species was almost extinct. He had to find a way to fight back, to help any surviving humans, to make the aliens pay for what they had done. "What is the condition of the ship?" he asked. "The Soul's Pride suffered severe damage during the final battle," Yunbi replied. "Most systems are offline, but I have been using minimal power to maintain life support and my own basic functions. The enemy boarding party has sealed off the medical bay, but they have not yet attempted to access the command areas of the ship." Wu Jin smiled for the first time since waking up. The aliens did not know what they were dealing with. This ship had been designed by humans, for humans. Every system, every corridor, every defense mechanism was built according to human logic and human tactics. The aliens might have won the war, but they were about to learn that humans did not give up easily. He made his way to a maintenance shaft and climbed up to the next level. The ship felt different than he remembered, as if something had changed while he slept. His body was stronger than it should have been after centuries in stasis, and his mind was clearer and faster than before. He wondered what the medical pod had done to him during the long years of repair and recovery. In the command center, Wu Jin activated the main display and began to assess the situation. The aliens had 3 ships positioned around the souls. Pride, preventing any escape. Their weapons were trained on his vessel, ready to destroy it if necessary. But they had made a mistake by boarding his ship instead of simply blowing it up from a safe distance. "Yun B, do we have any functioning weapons?" he asked. "Negative, Sergeant. All weapon systems were destroyed or depleted during the final battle. However, the quantum communicator is still operational, though it has been dormant to avoid detection." Wu Jin thought about this for a moment. A quantum communicator could send messages across the entire galaxy instantly, without any way for the enemy to intercept or block the transmission. If there were any humans left alive anywhere, they would be able to receive his signal. "Prepare a message for broadcast on all human emergency frequencies," he ordered. "What should the message contain?" asked Yunbi. Wu Jin looked at the tactical display showing the alien ships surrounding him. He thought about all the humans who had died fighting for their freedom, and all the humans who might still be alive somewhere, waiting for hope. "This is Sergeant Wu Jin of the Terran Republic," he said slowly. "If anyone still fights, I am coming for you." The message went out across the galaxy in an instant, traveling faster than light to every corner of known space. Somewhere out there, Wu Jin hoped other humans would hear it and know that they were not alone. On the alien ships, Captain Kyung-ho was dealing with a crisis. His boarding party was trapped inside the human vessel, and the ship itself had come alive around them. Emergency systems were activating throughout the dreadnought, and blast doors were preventing his people from reaching the exit. "Sir," said Bo-Ram from the communication station, "we are detecting a massive quantum transmission from the human ship. It was sent on frequencies we have never seen before." "What did it say?" asked Kyung-ho. "We cannot decode it, but the transmission was sent to every inhabited system in the galaxy. Whatever message the humans sent, everyone will have received it." Kyung-ho felt his scales turn cold. If the human was trying to contact other survivors, this could become a much bigger problem than anyone had anticipated. For 3 centuries, the galaxy had been at peace because the human threat had been eliminated. But if even one human remained alive and active, that peace could be shattered. "Contact High Command immediately," he ordered. "Tell them we have a situation that requires their immediate attention." Inside the soul's pride, Wu Jin was preparing for the fight of his life. He might be the last free human in the galaxy, but he was not going to go down without making the aliens remember why they had feared his species in the first place. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, So Young was loading explosives into a cargo container when the message reached her. The quantum signal pierced through the planet's atmosphere and activated the hidden receiver she had built from scavenged parts. When she heard the words spoken in Korean in a human voice, she dropped the explosive charge and nearly wept. So Young had been fighting the aliens for 15 years, ever since she had been old enough to hold a weapon. Her parents had been killed when she was 12, shot down by Viridian guards for the crime of teaching human children to read. She had escaped into the mines and learned to survive in the dark tunnels beneath the planet's surface. The mining world held over 50,000 human slaves, all forced to dig precious metals from the deep rocks for their alien masters. The conditions were terrible, and humans died every day from cave-ins, toxic gases, or simple exhaustion. So Young had spent years building a network of resistance fighters, preparing for the day when they could strike back. "Did you hear that?" she asked Hyunwoo, her second in command. He was older than her, a former engineer who had been captured during the final days of the war. "I heard it," he replied, his voice shaking with emotion. A real human voice. "Someone is still fighting." So Young activated her own communicator and sent word to every resistance cell on the planet. Tonight was the night they had been preparing for. They would take the mining facility, steal the transport ships, and join whoever had sent that message. 3 sectors away, in the Outer Rim territories, Dong-hyun was commanding a small fleet of modified cargo ships when the quantum signal reached his vessels. He had been raiding alien supply convoys for 20 years, staying one step ahead of the Viridian Navy. His ships were fast and well-armed, crewed by the last few hundred free humans in known space. When the message finished playing, Dong-hyun sat in stunned silence for several minutes. His crew gathered around him, waiting for orders. These men and women had followed him through countless battles, always hoping that someday they would find other humans who were still fighting. "Plot a course for the Kepler Nebula," he finally said. "We are going to find this Sergeant Wu Jin." His navigator, a young woman named Da-eun, looked worried. "Captain, that region is heavily patrolled by Viridian forces. If we go there, we might not make it back." Dong-hyun stood up and looked around at his crew. They were tired and scarred from years of running and hiding, but they were also the best fighters he had ever known, and they deserved better than spending the rest of their lives as space pirates. "We have been hiding for too long," he said. "It is time to remind the galaxy what humans can do when we work together." But the most surprising response to Wu Jin's message came from inside the Viridian government itself. Wu Jin had been working as a diplomatic aide for over a century, slowly climbing through the ranks of the alien bureaucracy. No one suspected that the quiet, efficient assistant was actually human. She had learned to speak their languages perfectly, had studied their customs and cultures, and had become invisible in plain sight. Wu Jin had been born on a human colony world that was conquered when she was very young. Instead of being sent to a labor camp, she had been adopted by a Viridian family who believed that humans could be civilized if they were raised properly. She had played the part of a grateful, reformed human for so long that sometimes she almost forgot what she really was. When she heard Wu Jin's message, all of those buried memories came flooding back. She remembered her real parents, her human name, and the language she had been forced to forget. For the first time in decades, she felt truly alive. Wu Jin had access to classified files about human survivors, prison camps, and resistance activities. She knew where the aliens kept their most dangerous human prisoners, and she knew which worlds still had significant human populations. If this Sergeant Wu Jin was serious about fighting back, she could give him the information he needed to make a real difference. Back on the Soul's Pride, Wu Jin was learning more about what had happened to his body during the long years of stasis. The medical scanners showed that microscopic machines were flowing through his bloodstream, repairing damage and improving his natural abilities. His reflexes were faster, his strength was greater, and his mind could process information more quickly than ever before. "What did the medical pod do to me?" he asked Yunbi. "The nanotechnology was experimental," the AI replied. "It was designed to keep critically injured soldiers alive long enough for proper medical treatment. However, after 3 centuries of continuous operation, the nanobots have evolved beyond their original programming." Wu Jin flexed his hands and felt the strength in his muscles. He could hear sounds from other parts of the ship that should have been too faint to detect. His vision was sharper, and he could see clearly even in the dim emergency lighting. "Am I still human?" he asked. "You are still genetically human," said Yunbi. "But you are also something more. The nanobots have made you stronger, faster, and more resilient than any baseline human could be. They have also given you the ability to interface directly with human technology." As if to demonstrate this point, Wu Jin found that he could control the ship's systems just by thinking about them. Lights turned on and off at his command, doors opened and closed, and he could access any information in the ship's database without using a computer terminal. The aliens were still trapped in the medical bay, but Wu Jin knew they would find a way out eventually. He needed to be ready for them when they did. He also needed to prepare for the arrival of other aliens who would come looking for their missing colleagues. Working quickly, he activated the ship's automated repair systems. Mechanical arms emerged from hidden panels in the walls and began fixing damaged circuits and replacing broken components. The Soul's Pride had been badly hurt in the final battle, but it was far from dead. "How long before we have weapons back online?" he asked. "At current repair rates, approximately 6 hours for basic defensive systems," Yunbi replied. "Full offensive capability will require at least 2 days, assuming we can obtain raw materials for manufacturing ammunition." Wu Jin nodded and continued his preparations. He downloaded tactical information about Viridian military capabilities, studied star charts showing the current political situation, and learned about the technology that had been developed during the 3 centuries he had been asleep. The galaxy had changed dramatically since the war. The Viridian hegemony controlled almost everything, with 12 different alien species working together to maintain order and peace. They had divided up the former human territories among themselves, turning colonies into mining worlds, factory planets, and agricultural centers. But as Wu Jin studied the information, he began to see weaknesses in their system. The alien alliance was based on mutual benefit, not genuine friendship. Some species had grown wealthy and powerful while others had been left behind. There were tensions between different groups, and several worlds had experienced rebellions and civil unrest. Most importantly, the aliens had grown comfortable during their long peace. Their military forces were spread thin across thousands of worlds, and their soldiers had never fought against a truly dangerous enemy. They had spent 3 centuries fighting pirates and criminals, not warriors. Wu Jin smiled as he realized the opportunity before him. The aliens thought they had won the war completely, but they had made a crucial mistake. They had left one human, alive, and now he was awake and very angry. Outside the ship, Captain Kyung-ho was receiving reports from across the galaxy. The quantum transmission had been detected by monitoring stations everywhere, and military commanders were demanding answers. Several worlds with large human slave populations were reporting increased unrest and suspicious activity. "Sir," said Bo-Ram, "High Command is ordering us to destroy the human ship immediately." Kyung-ho looked at the Soul's Pride floating in the nebula and felt uncertain. His boarding party was still inside that vessel, and destroying it would mean killing his own people. But he also understood the danger that one active human could represent. "Send another message to the boarding party," he ordered. "Tell them they have 1 hour to evacuate before we open fire." Inside the human dreadnought, the trapped aliens received the message and began working desperately to cut through the blast doors that separated them from the exit. They had no idea that above them, Wu Jin was preparing to remind the galaxy why humans had once been the most feared warriors among the stars. 6 months had passed since Wu Jin's awakening, and the galaxy was no longer the peaceful place it had been for 3 centuries. The Soul's Pride now led a growing fleet of liberated human survivors and captured alien vessels. The massive dreadnought had been transformed from a dead relic into a mobile fortress, its hull gleaming with new armor plating and bristling with weapons. Wu Jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display that showed the positions of his fleet. 57 ships now followed him, ranging from massive cargo haulers converted into troop transports to sleek fighter craft built in hidden asteroid bases. Each vessel carried humans who had once been slaves, but who now fought with the enhanced abilities that the nanobots had given them. The nanotechnology had spread to every human in his fleet, passed along through simple contact with those who already carried it. The effect was remarkable and slightly frightening. Enhanced humans could think faster, move quicker, and react with superhuman speed. They could interface directly with their ship's computer systems, making them incredibly effective pilots and gunners. "Sir," said Yunbi from the ship's communication system, "we are receiving a transmission from Captain Dong-Hyun's squadron. They have successfully liberated the prison facility on Vega 7. Wu Jin nodded with satisfaction. Dong-hyun had proven to be an excellent commander, leading daring raids against heavily defended targets. His modified cargo ships had grown into a proper battle fleet, crewed by former prisoners who fought with the desperate courage of people who had nothing left to lose. "How many survivors?" asked Woo Jin. "Approximately 12,000 humans have been freed from the facility," replied Yunbi. However, Dong-hyun reports that Voridian reinforcements are en route to his position. He is requesting permission to engage. "Granted," said Woo Jin without hesitation. "Tell him to show them what enhanced humans can do." On the mining world of Kepler 442b, So Young was leading her own revolution. The underground resistance had grown into a full-scale rebellion, with human fighters emerging from the deep tunnels to attack alien installations across the planet's surface. The Viridian garrison had been completely overwhelmed by the speed and ferocity of the human assault. So Young herself had become something more than human thanks to the nanobots that had reached her world along with Woo Jin's message. She could run faster than any baseline human, leap incredible distances, and survive injuries that would have killed her before the enhancement. More importantly, she could feel the presence of other enhanced humans around her, creating a mental network that allowed perfect coordination during battle. "The spaceport is secure," reported Hyun Woo as he joined her on the command platform, overlooking the mining complex. "We have captured 6 transport ships and enough supplies to last for months." So Young smiled as she watched human workers celebrating their freedom in the streets below. Many of them were already showing signs of enhancement as the nanobots spread through the population. Within days, every human on the planet would be transformed. "Contact Sergeant Woo Jin," she ordered. "Tell him that Kepler 442b is now a free human world." But the most valuable intelligence was coming from Woo Jin, who had spent months carefully copying classified files from within the Viridian government. Her position as a diplomatic aide gave her access to information about military deployments, prison camp locations, and planned operations against human resistance groups. Woo Jin had been living a dangerous double life, feeding information to the growing human rebellion while maintaining her cover as a loyal citizen of the hegemony. The nanobots had enhanced her mental abilities, making her even better at the complex deception that had kept her alive for so long. Her latest intelligence report contained information that would change the course of the war. The Viridian leadership was planning to use an experimental weapon to destroy the nanobots that gave humans their enhanced abilities. The weapon was called the Neural Disruption Array, and it was designed to send out electromagnetic pulses that would break down the microscopic machines in human bloodstreams. When Woo Jin received Woo Jin's message, he immediately called a meeting of his top commanders. The main conference room of the Soul's Pride filled with the leaders of the human resistance. So Young from the mining worlds, Dong-hyun from the Outer Rim fleets, and several other commanders who had emerged during the months of fighting. "They know about the nanobots," Woo Jin announced without preamble. "Our source inside their government has warned us that they are preparing a weapon specifically designed to neutralize our enhancements." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The enhanced abilities were what allowed humans to fight, on equal terms with the technologically superior alien forces. Without the nanobots, they would return to being ordinary humans facing impossible odds. "When will they deploy this weapon?" asked So Young. "According to our intelligence, the device will be ready for testing within 2 weeks, replied Woo Jin. "They plan to use it first against our fleet, then against any world with a significant enhanced human population." Dong-hyun leaned forward in his chair. "Do we know where this weapon is being built?" "Yes," said Woo Jin. "It is being constructed at the hegemony's primary research facility on HFY. The station is heavily defended, with a fleet of over 200 ships providing security." The human commanders looked at each other with expressions of grim determination. They all understood what needed to be done, even though the odds were heavily against them. "We have to destroy it," said So Young simply, "whatever the cost." Wu Jin activated the holographic display in the center of the table, showing the tactical situation around Rigel Prime. The research station was enormous, protected by multiple shield generators and defensive weapons platforms. The defending fleet included some of the most advanced warships in the Viridian Navy. "This will not be easy," he admitted. "We will be attacking the most heavily defended position in the galaxy with a fleet that is still largely composed of converted civilian vessels. But we have advantages they do not expect," added Dong Hyun. "Our enhanced crews can react faster than their computer systems. Our ships can coordinate their attacks through the mental network that connects all enhanced humans." As they planned the assault, Wu Jin felt the weight of command pressing down on him. He was leading his people into a battle that many of them would not survive. But if they failed to destroy the neural disruption array, all of humanity would return to slavery. Meanwhile, on Rigel Prime, Dr. Minho was putting the finishing touches on his greatest creation. The Sauridian scientist had been working on the neural disruption array for months, ever since samples of enhanced human tissue had been brought to his laboratory. Minho was proud of his work, but he was also troubled by what he had learned about the nanobots. The microscopic machines were incredibly sophisticated, far more advanced than anything the hegemony had ever created. They seemed to be guided by some kind of collective intelligence, adapting and evolving to meet new challenges. Most disturbing of all, the nanobots appeared to be spreading to non-enhanced humans through simple physical contact. If this continued, every human in the galaxy would eventually possess these abilities. The implications were staggering. "Doctor," said his assistant, a young Klithrak named Jae Sung, "Grand Admiral Tai Jun is here to inspect the weapon." The Grand Admiral was a massive reptilian creature from the Sauridian homeworld, with scales that had been darkened by years of combat and scars that told the story of a long military career. He studied the neural disruption array with obvious satisfaction. "When will it be ready for deployment?" he asked. "The weapon is complete," replied Minho. "However, I must warn you that the nanobots are more sophisticated than we initially believed. There is a possibility that they could adapt to resist the electromagnetic pulses." Taejun's yellow eyes narrowed. "Are you saying the weapon might not work?" "I am saying that we should be prepared for unexpected results," said Minho carefully. "The human technology is unlike anything we have encountered before." The Grand Admiral dismissed his concerns with a wave of his clawed hand. "The humans are defeated rebels with stolen ships and primitive weapons. No matter what enhancements they have given themselves, they cannot stand against the combined might of the hegemony." But as Minho watched the alien admiral leave his laboratory, he felt a growing sense of unease. The humans had surprised them before with their resilience and adaptability. He suspected they were about to do so again. In deep space, the human fleet was preparing for the most important battle in 3 centuries. Enhanced crews worked around the clock to prepare their ships for combat, while Wu Jin finalized the attack plan that would determine the fate of his species. The time for hiding was over. Humanity was about to remind the galaxy why they had once been feared throughout the stars. The battle for Rigel Prime began at dawn on the station's artificial day cycle. Wu Jin's fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their enhanced crews working as one mind through the mental network that connected every human in the galaxy. The Soul's Pride led the charge, its massive guns already tracking targets as the Viridian defenders scrambled to respond. Grand Admiral Tae-jun was in his command center when the alarms began sounding throughout the station. His tactical display showed dozens of human ships materializing out of nowhere, their weapons already firing at the outer defense platforms. "How did they get so close without being detected?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," replied his communications officer. "Our sensors showed nothing until they were practically on top of us." What Tae-jun did not know was that the enhanced humans had learned to use their mental connection to coordinate more than just their thoughts. The nanobots in their bloodstreams could generate electromagnetic fields that interfered with alien sensors, making their ships nearly invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. Wu Jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, feeling the battle. Through the enhanced senses of every human pilot in his fleet, he could see through their eyes, think with their minds, and coordinate their actions with superhuman precision. It was like commanding a single organism with hundreds of parts, all working toward the same goal. "Target the shield generators first," he ordered, and the message was transmitted instantly to every ship through the mental network. Human gunners fired with impossible accuracy, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to hit targets that would have been impossible for baseline humans to track. The Voridian fleet moved to intercept, but they were facing an enemy unlike anything they had encountered before. Human ships moved with fluid grace, anticipating their opponent's actions and responding faster than alien computers could calculate. What should have been a defensive victory for the numerically superior Voridian forces quickly turned into a nightmare. Captain Kyung-ho commanded one of the defending squadrons, and he watched in horror as his ships were systematically destroyed by the human attackers. The humans seemed to know exactly where his vessels would be before he had even given the orders to move them. Their weapons found weak points in his ship's armor with devastating precision. "Sir," said his weapons officer, "the humans are using some kind of coordinated attack pattern. They are fighting like they share a single mind." Kyung-ho had studied human military tactics in the academy, but this was something completely different. The humans were no longer fighting as individual ships with separate crews. They had become something new, something that the Voridian military was not prepared to face. On the research station, Dr. Minho watched the battle through the laboratory's viewing windows and felt his worst fears being confirmed. The human fleet was demonstrating capabilities that should have been impossible. Their coordination was perfect, their accuracy was superhuman, and their tactical awareness exceeded anything that biological creatures should have been able to achieve. "Doctor," said Jae-sung, his voice filled with panic, "should we activate the neural disruption array?" Minho hesitated. The weapon was designed to be used against humans on planetary surfaces, not against an active fleet in the middle of a space battle. If he activated it now, there was no telling what the results might be. "Do it," he said finally. "We have no choice." The neural disruption array powered up with a deep humming sound that seemed to vibrate through the entire station. Massive electromagnetic. Pulses began radiating outward, designed to disrupt the nanobots in human bloodstreams and return the enhanced warriors to their baseline state. But something went wrong. Instead of destroying the nanobots, the electromagnetic pulses seemed to energize them. Across the human fleet, enhanced humans felt a sudden surge of power as the microscopic machines in their bodies absorbed the energy and used it to multiply and improve. Wu Jin felt the change immediately. His connection to the other humans became stronger and clearer than ever before. He could sense every human in the galaxy, from the fighters in his fleet to the slaves on distant worlds. More importantly, he could feel the nanobots spreading to those slaves, triggered by the massive electromagnetic pulse. On worlds across the galaxy, human slaves suddenly found themselves filled with new strength and abilities. The enhancement spread like wildfire through human populations, carried by the electromagnetic radiation that the aliens had intended as a weapon. In a matter of hours, every human in known space had been transformed. So Young felt the change as she led her forces in the liberation of another mining world. Suddenly, she could sense thousands of other human minds across the planet, all connected through the shared network of enhanced consciousness. The human workers in the mines felt it too, and they rose up against their alien overseers with newfound strength and coordination. Dong-hyun experienced the transformation while attacking a Voridian supply depot in the Outer Rim. His enhanced abilities doubled and then tripled as the nanobots in his system evolved beyond their original programming. Around him, his crew members were undergoing the same changes, becoming something more than human while remaining essentially themselves. Yujin felt the enhancement reach her while she sat in a diplomatic meeting on the Viridian capital world. The nanobots that had been dormant in her system suddenly activated, connecting her to the vast network of human consciousness that now spanned the galaxy. For the first time in her life, she was no longer alone in her deception. The battle for HFY turned into a complete rout as the enhanced human fleet overwhelmed the defending aliens. But Wu Jin found that victory brought no satisfaction. The power flowing through him and his people was intoxicating, and he could feel the temptation to use it for conquest rather than liberation. Through the mental network, he could command every enhanced human in the galaxy. He could direct them to rise up simultaneously against their alien oppressors to take revenge for 3 centuries of slavery and oppression. He could become the emperor of a new galactic order, with humanity ruling over the species that had once enslaved them. The nanobots offered him exactly that opportunity. They showed him how he could take control of the network, how he could direct the actions of every enhanced human according to his will. All he had to do was accept the power they were offering. Wu Jin stood in the command center of the captured research station, looking down at the neural disruption array that had triggered humanity's final evolution. Around him, the other human commanders waited for his decision. They could all feel the power flowing through the network, and they knew that he could seize control if he chose to do so. "What are your orders, sir?" asked So Young. Her voice was respectful, but he could sense the question behind her words. Would he become the dictator that the aliens claimed humans had always been? Wu Jin thought about all the humans who had died during the war and all those who had suffered in slavery since then. The aliens deserved to pay for what they had done. Humanity deserved to rule the galaxy that had tried to destroy them. But as he reached for the control interface that would give him command over every enhanced human, Wu Jin remembered something his commanding officer had told him during the original war. "We fight for freedom, not for conquest. The moment we become conquerors, we become the very thing we are fighting against." Instead of taking control, Wu Jin began to dismantle the network's command structure. He distributed the control protocols to every enhanced human in the galaxy, ensuring that no single person could dominate the others. The nanobots resisted at first, trying to preserve the hierarchical system they had been designed to create. But Wu Jin's will was stronger than their programming. "We did not survive 3 centuries of oppression to become oppressors ourselves," he announced to the assembled commanders. "Humanity is free, and we will remain free." The enhanced humans accepted his decision, and the network reorganized itself into a true democracy. Different groups of humans formed their own governments and communities, but they remained connected through the shared consciousness that allowed them to coordinate when necessary. Over the following months, the Viridian hegemony collapsed as member species realized they could no longer maintain control over their former subjects. Some alien races fled to distant galaxies, while others chose to negotiate peaceful coexistence with the new humanity. Captain Kyung Ho was among those who chose cooperation over conflict. He had seen what the enhanced humans could accomplish when they worked together, and he understood that the old order was gone forever. In negotiations with human representatives, he helped establish the framework for a new galactic government based on equality rather than domination. Dr. Min Ho devoted his remaining years to studying the nanobots and their effects on human evolution. His research helped both humans and aliens understand the changes that had transformed the galaxy, and his work became the foundation for peaceful coexistence between species. Wu Jin emerged from her centuries of hiding to become one of the chief architects of the new galactic order. Her experience with both human and alien cultures made her invaluable in establishing diplomatic relationships between species that had been enemies for so long.